Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time, and I'm here for another Monday this and that vlog. And for those of you who are new, please understand right from the top, this is the one day a week where I talk about a bunch of different topics, giving updates, answering questions, and so much more. And so if you're interested in more single topic videos, those happen the rest of the week. And then we also now have the live shows, which will happen like every other Sunday, maybe eventually every Sunday, where I'll also be answering questions and talking about various topics. So let's get to the topics of today, starting off with the homemade mascara. Now, I have a couple of different videos out there. And the last one I did was several years ago, and it was an update to the original recipe. And now I'm giving you yet another update. And so, yes, I make my own homemade mascara. And yes, sometimes I still use a store-bought waterproof mascara when I really need it. But most of the time, I wear my own homemade mascara, which is what I'm wearing today. And you can see I keep it in a little jar just like this. What I recommend when you first start making your own mascara is start by just making tiny amounts at a time, like working in the amounts of 1/8 of a teaspoon. And then that way you can play with it. You can try different ratios. You can play with different other types of ingredients that you want to put in there and find what works best for you. And once you get a recipe you really like, then you can start making larger batches like this and then just keep it in a jar. And because all the ingredients are things that will not spoil, they'll be just fine in a jar like this. But I found the best thing to do is to vacuum seal the jar in between filling my tube with it. Yes, I've tried the syringe method. I've tried different methods. I find the best way to do it is scoop it up with a brush and just keep pushing it down in there. But in between doing that, I vacuum seal the jar, and that is to prevent it from drying out. But even if it does dry out some and get too thick, there's still a remedy for that. So let me really quickly go over the basic recipe, and that is even amounts of activated charcoal, bentonite clay, glycerin, and castor oil. So each has their purpose. Obviously the charcoal is going to add the color. The bentonite clay gives it hold and more fill. The glycerin gives it more flexibility, as does the castor oil, and both of those also do help to condition the eyelashes. Now, before my last video, I was using a lot less glycerin and castor oil than I do now. But remember that bentonite clay is going to help with the hold, so you don't have to worry so much about the castor oil. Now, it is not waterproof, but it has pretty good hold as is. So for this, I used a tablespoon of each. Then to add to that, that's going to be pretty thick consistency. So then how I thin it out to get the consistency that I want is I add some kind of colloid to it. Usually the best one to use, because it's so good for your hair and is said to help with hair growth, is colloidal copper. Then there's the other one that starts with an S that I'm not supposed to talk about on YouTube, but that one, either one of those are going to be good to also help preserve it, because if you add plain water, then you're going to be more apt to have issues with it going moldy. But using a colloid like that, it's not going to spoil, it's not going to mold. And then you just keep adding a little bit, stirring it in until you get the consistency you want. If you're going to use it as an eyeliner, which yes, you can do, you're going to want to thin it out a little more than you probably would for making your mascara with. And I do actually now make it a little bit thinner even for a mascara than I did in that last video I did. And even if in here it feels like it's starting to get a little dried out, a little too thick, I'll take one of these, fill it up with the colloid that I'm going to use, and then just put a few drops in there and mix it in there, and that works really well. Now, here are some options you can do if you don't want it to be so dark, is you can either use like a half and half blend of cocoa powder with charcoal, or even just use all cocoa powder for a nice, it'll be a lighter brown, especially when you're mixing it with the bentonite clay. Just keep in mind the bentonite clay, being a light gray, is going to lighten up the color anyway, so it's not going to be such a heavy black color. And you can play with those ratios too and use more of the charcoal and less of the bentonite clay if you would prefer. So there's many different options. You can even add aloe vera gel to that, which is also going to be conditioning, but could possibly increase the susceptibility of it molding or spoiling if you add that, because all the other ingredients I'm talking about do not spoil. Then the other thing you can add, and I usually do, is a couple of drops of lavender oil. Lavender is really good for your eyelashes. It adds a nice smell. It also helps to preserve the mascara, and it is helpful at increasing hair growth. So what a perfect thing to use on your eyelashes. So now I want to talk about a couple other things, and one is the freezer quilt. So if you saw yesterday's live show, I talked about the freezer quilt. But if you missed it or you don't want to go back and watch it, I want to touch on that again. The freezer quilt, I made it to be exactly that. A quilt for my freezer using recycled denim jeans. I have a big pile. If you would have seen my craft room tour, you would have seen just how many, and I think I still have more out in Patrick's shop, jeans that I have. Some of them are my boys' old jeans, some are Patrick's old work jeans, some of them are ones that people have just given me over the years, because for many years I have made denim quilts, and I made them for ourselves, I've made them as gifts, I've made them for auctions, charitable auctions in our local areas. Because I wanted it to look especially cute in my hallway, I decided to mix up the top between recycled jeans and some fabric scraps from flannel. Some of it is flannel sheets, one is an old flannel nightgown that somebody gave me years ago, and again, for the sake of having the fabric. And so I've used that nightgown actually had quite a bit of material on it, so I've used it for a few different things. And so, just mixing it up to make it look cute, to go with my more rustic theme, especially out there in the foyer where the freezer is, which is mostly in dark blues and deep reds. Oh, and then I lined the back with a flannel sheet. And the purpose of that is not only to make it look cute, but it is to add an extra layer of insulation to the freezer. So I wanted to make sure I made it long enough on all sides that it would cover the seal as well. So it helps prevent losing cold that way and cold from out of the top. Now, people assume the quilt was about staying warm. In this case, it's about keeping the freezer cold. So not only is this just going to save on energy throughout the year, but in the event of a power outage, having some kind of quilt or blankets that you can throw on top. A lot of times I'll throw another quilt on top in the event of a power outage, especially in the winter, because we can't depend fully on our solar power to run our freezers. Then I throw that extra quilt to make sure it stays very well insulated, and open it as little as I possibly can, and hopefully not at all. Because the more you have on there to insulate it, the better chance you have of all your items staying frozen, especially during a longer term power outage, and making sure that your freezers are full. Even if you can't have them full of food, having them full of bottles, like plastic bottles or milk jugs that you filled up with water and then froze. Or if you get things like from Misfits Market, where you get those ice pack things, throw those in there to fill up any of your gaps that you may have, so that when the power goes out, those are going to keep things frozen in there for a much longer period of time. All right, now the other thing I wanted to mention is, you might see I have two empty jars sitting here. Both of these are things I have video recipes on, and I need to get more made up. So the first one here is my homemade laundry detergent that I came up with this recipe kind of. I had an older one that I was actually using homemade soap in. I don't do that anymore. I actually quit using soap, and I explain why in the video I did on this a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. And basically it's just salt. And even though I say sea salt in that video, I wasn't thinking, I was using sea salt, but that's only because it's several good amount of years ago, I bought 2 50-pound bags of sea salt because I was able to get them for $8 a bag. And I don't know that I'll ever see that again. And so I'm still working through that salt. But whatever the cheapest salt is, it just can be whatever cheap table salt. It does not have to be sea salt. So it's mostly just salt, baking soda, and washing soda. And I'll link to that video down below because it has more purposes than just using as a detergent, which I found works really well. I'm still making it. It is easy to whip up. And I always like to have 2 jars. So I'm working through a jar right now, just started and just finished this one off. So now I'm going to make up another batch to fill this up. But I'll also go around to look in under my kitchen cabinet and in the 2 different bathroom cabinets to see how topped off my jars are there, because it is also a great scrubbing powder for cleaning tubs and sinks and more. And it's cheap and it's super easy to make up. So you might want to go check out that video if you're interested, and that way you can get away from all the harsh chemicals that are in most of your store-bought detergents, and is also inexpensive. Sometimes you find something that's more natural, they're going to be a lot more expensive, and this is very cheap. And anyway, and by the way, you can make your own washing soda with baking soda and save yourself even a little bit more. But then again, it takes energy to make that. So if you're relying on electricity for that, like your oven, you might not be saving anymore making your own. But I think I have another video where I talk about the differences between baking soda, which is sodium bicarbonate, and washing soda, which is sodium carbonate, and explain how you can make your own washing soda from the baking soda. Now the second empty jar, I have a full-length video out that I'll be linking to down below, but you would have seen the short come out last week or the week before on making the jet fueled latte blend. So it's got ashwagandha, maca root, cocoa powder, and some spices and more. And when I put the short out, and I got to remind people of this too, whenever I have a short that goes hand in hand with a full-length video that explains more about a recipe, how I use it, and why, then I always link to it directly on the screen. That's the clickable link. I'll still link to it in the description box and in a comment, but sometimes you can't click on those links. Sometimes the ones in the comment that I pin, if I remember to go back and do it, sometimes you can click on those, but not always. But remember, whenever you're watching a short from anyone and they have a video that it goes with, they will link to it directly on the screen. It's right at the bottom of the screen, just below the name, and with the little play symbol right next to it. Click on that. It doesn't matter if you're on a computer or a smart device, that should work and take you right to the full-length video. So anyway, I need to get more of this made up. That short was actually shot a while back when I made that last batch, and this one's been empty for a while, and now that I'm getting back into using that, I need to get another batch made. It doesn't take long, it's just remembering to do it and mix all the ingredients together and put them in there. So remember to go check out that full-length video in the description box down below. And then another thing I wanted to share that is just, I think is really great news, is that if a lot of you know that I get a lot of my meats from Butcher Box. I get some things from Painted Hills out of Oregon, like their beef bacon and their beef franks. I keep forgetting to mention that because we don't eat a lot of hot dogs. But when we do, I go with their beef franks they're just great. They're really good and they're very, very filling. One is enough to fill you up as if you just ate 2 regular hot dogs. But, you know, they're all beef. There's no pork products or anything like that in there. And they're great. So I love Painted Hills, and they're pretty local to us. And then sometimes, yes, we do get beef from local sellers when we can. But Butcher Box for us is a great way for us to get some great beef and other types of meats. Mostly beef is what I get from them. And what some people had an issue with is all their beef comes from Australia, but it's still hormone-free, antibiotic-free, and it's all grass-fed, and it is delicious. I absolutely love it. But they are now going to also, on top of that, start carrying some U.S. pasture-raised beef, but is also grain-finished. Now, the difference between the grain finish that they're carrying and the grain finish that a lot of other places will carry is that sometimes they're put into feedlots for that last few months of their life where they're grain finished. Where this, they're still going to be out in the pasture the whole time. They're just adding the grain to their diet in that end. My only issue with the grain is you don't know how organic that's going to be. Is there going to be GMO corn and all that? That would be my biggest concern. But the reason a lot of people will do that is it adds more fat into the meat for those who like that more marbled effect. So for those who like the idea of butcher box but want U.S. raised beef, they're now going to be offering that option. I am going to try the chuck roast, even though I love the entirely grass-fed chuck roast that comes out of Australia. I love it. It's just so tender and tasty. But, and honestly like it better than some of the locally raised beefs that I've bought. So just wanted to let you know that my Butcher Box link is always, it's a referral link, so it's always in the description box down below. So whenever you sign up under somebody else, like in my case, you sign up under me, that gives me a credit to my account. You can cancel it at any time. You can spread out your orders. How you can get an order every 6 months if you want instead of every month, even though when you initially sign up, it might say, you know, be monthly. You can change that at any time. You can push your next delivery date out as far as you want. And I've done that before. It's like, okay, my freezers are full. I don't need any meat right now, especially after because this year we also got I think it was a quarter of a locally raised beef. So we had that on top of the Butcher Box. And so we definitely have some full freezers. But anyway, they're still, I still really like Butcher Box, and I appreciate the way they really try to source good organically raised meats that are free from antibiotics and steroids and all that kind of stuff. And then a reminder that you probably would have just heard yesterday if you were watching me live is I'm going to be closing out the food storage collaboration with my subscribers. Now, if you're new to my channel, I have several of these videos. I actually haven't done one in a long time, but I've done different topics where people will take a picture maybe of their gardens if that's the theme, or their craft project if that's the theme, and nice quality pictures. You want them clear. You don't want a lot of clutter in them. You want to make sure that people know what the subject is just by looking at the photo. And like some people have sent me photos of their pantry. Some people have taken photos where they took some of their different like dehydrated goods and canned goods and set them up on a counter and took pictures of them. And then they send them to me along with whatever name they want me to attribute to their photos. It can be totally anonymous. It can be initials. It can be a channel name, whatever you want. Just make sure you make that clear. And then you'll send those pictures to raincountryhomestead@gmail.com. And then I'm going to either this week or next week start putting that together into a video. So it'll be a slideshow video of a lot of different food storage ideas that not only is kind of fun to watch and see what other people are doing, it can be encouraging and go, it might give you some new ideas of things that you can put up or ways that you can store your food. So any kind of food storage. Like I said, it can be dehydrated foods, things that you freeze dried, or things that you bought freeze dried, or things that you purchase canned, or that you canned yourself. Anything food storage related that you're putting up to get you through hard times, or just to make your life more convenient so you don't have to run to the store every day. So I hope you enjoyed my this and that for the week, and don't forget to comment, like, whatever down below. That does help the algorithms, because I'm still getting stomped down quite a bit from one of the two platforms you're watching this on. And thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.